If we could have our guests return to the room. Let's come with a coffee. Please do come with your coffee so we are able to start. We have our guests who are waiting for us virtually. We're just trying to ensure we have audio on their part. And also conclude the media interviews that are happening right now outside. So we'll allow the media to conclude that because our ministers are in a press conference. But we have two presentations that will be kicking off this session. And thereafter, we'll look at the overview of the green manufacturing strategy with Dr. Joshua Mtambi. And then the Commissioner of Industry and Technology in the Ministry of Trade, Dennis Anigona, will make his presentation ahead of the panel discussion, which will be moderated by Godbert Mshale. And then we'll have our Q&A session, which will lead into the closing remarks by our State Minister. Please do not depart early. We'll have lunch available for you after that. And we will also have the ongoing networking that will happen thereafter. Like earlier, I want to appreciate our partners, the UNDP, the European Union, Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, the Global Green Growth Institute, Uganda Investment Authority, UNBS, NPA, UNIDO, the Uganda Development Corporation, UNCDF, and the Uganda Manufacturers Association, alongside the Regional Integration Implementation Program and the Uganda Cleaner Protection Center. So, to you, our partners, we want to thank you for working with us on this African Industrialization Day. I'm just waiting for a clean brief on making sure that our two participants. Oh, you can hear me? Is this Nadia? Did you mute myself again? So Nadia, if you are hearing me, I'll give you a minute. We are going to come to you very shortly. I'm just ensuring that we have at least as many people in the room as we can. And can we have more chairs here because what feels lonely in this room?
Hello, Regina.
Yes, I can hear you, Nadia, now. Can you hear me, Nadia?
Yes, but it's clicking many times.
All right. When they mute my audio, I'm sure you'll have better audio on your part.
Okay, thank you. So I stand by.
Okay, yes, 1 minute stand by, Nadia.
Okay.
Okay, now that the PS is here, she's the boss, I will definitely start. Her minister is already handling a press briefing, so we will quickly move into this session. We'll try and work very quickly to ensure that we conclude our agenda at the appropriate time. So allow me to welcome you back to this second session of the African Industrialization Day. We have two virtual presentations on the Uganda Industrial Park Guidelines, concept of eco parks, and the international good practices in industrial park development, an example of Indonesia, and also Dr. Joshua Mutambi on the overview on the green manufacturing strategy. So we'll have those three packed together, and hopefully we'll then have enough time for Goodman and the panel to run us through moving towards inclusive and sustainable industrialization. And that will be moderated by Mr. Godfrey Tumushabe, who is the Associate Director of GLIS. So I want to turn to Nadia from the Global Green Growth Institute. Nadia on Uganda's Industrial Park Guidelines, concept of eco parks. Over to you, Nadia. Nadia, over to you. Yes.
Yeah, good morning everybody. Just showing you my face. It's a pleasure talking with you from a distance. I'm talking to you from Switzerland. I'll stop my video and put a presentation on screen. And if I understand well, I have up to 9:55 my time, 10 minutes for my presentation. Let me just display my screen. I hope. Okay, just a second. Do you see my screen? Well, I don't hear anybody. Yes, we see it. Could you please confirm if you see my screen? Okay, very good. Thanks. So I'm presenting the topic on green industrial park, or other name is eco industrial park. this is not a new concept, but we are adopting the UNICO definition for it, which is quite new. It came as a result of an analysis of the experience of manufacturing services. Service business located on common property, and where members would seek to enhance their economic performance, but also the social and environmental performance through collaboration. One very important aspect of it is the common management. So there's a difference between an eco or green industrial park and a cluster of industry, is that they have come together to have a management system where they can perform services in common. This has been found to be one of the key factors of success of all the experience over the years. Another very important aspect is the linkage with the community award and the linkage with sustainable cities. So basically, at the company level, you do several efforts in greening, such as resource efficiency and cleaner production, low carbon technology, biodiversity preservation, occupational health. The list is not finished. Then you pool the resource as a community within the park to share infrastructure, services. But then you go outside the park and look what you can do with the city. It can be to have common infrastructure together, it can be corporate social responsibility activities, and so on and so forth. So there are many names with differences, but I mean, all those different names can lead to becoming a green or an eco-industrial park. In particular, green special economic zones, which is also something quite fashionable right now. What is important is that when we talk about green, we are not limiting ourselves to just doing recycling or a bit of material efficiency. We want to go beyond that. And also, to have a green level, we need to go beyond compliance, because compliance is the minimum level you will have with any companies or any industrial park in the country. So what does it say in terms of green goals? It can address both existing park and new park. We call a green park a green field when we develop a park that does not exist yet, and we call it brownfield when it's a park that exists. But the development into a green industrial park or an eco-industrial park, I will use the term EIP later, not to repeat every time eco-industrial park. This can apply to existing park and to new park. Now, not every park is able to become an eco-industrial park, but every park is able to green itself. So that's why you have three different ways of development. The one at the bottom here is when for several reasons, the park cannot become green because, for example, it's a type of industry that is too polluting, or it is in a location that is impeding, or for different other factors, including obsolete equipment and so on. So in this case, it can be redesigned to reduce negative impact and may require major rethinking to meet minimum standards. This has happened, for example, in Asia with public government-owned park where investment would have been too big to green them, and they sometimes prefer to start over again. But in other places, the money is there; it can be reshuffled. Then other projects can become green, but needing redesign as well. And then when we will give the status of green industrial park, it's really when the park is green, but it's also going further in terms of performance. As I said, it's not just being compliant with national regulation, environmental or social. What are the key elements of an EIP? You have the park management, finance one. This is necessary to do collective action. You have, of course, different measures you take on your environmental performance level, and a very important one is the management and monitoring system. The same for social performance, and this includes also the community award, not just the employee, and the economic performance. Very important to realize that it can address micro, small, medium, and large enterprise, because many people think that industrial parks are only for big companies. There are many good examples over the world where SMEs have been organized into an industrial park, a green industrial park. So here's a bit a repetition of what we've just seen, but to say that why we want to go green is because we want to decouple the environmental impact with economic development. And what are the, let's say, the assets of going into a green industrial park approach is that first the performance that is improved. Secondly, because there are a lot of measures that can be taken to promote this type of approach, including fiscal and tax incentive, which is particularly the case for special economic zone. Green post incentive can be designed there. You can have certification, which is something Unido is working on as well. It's a good marketing signal. You know that the customers are more and more take more and more interest into social corporate responsibility aspects. And besides, of course, to manage the capitals, both the social and natural capitals of the country. Here it's again an image from the Unido global book and also from GPGI work on special economic zone and green special economic zone. So you see that you have the element we talked about management and the measures you need to do at company level and as a community. But it's also defining aspects of spatial planning and zoning and infrastructure. Thereby we speak about symbiosis. Symbiosis is when we try to put up infrastructure that individually company would not be able to afford, but that commonly they can benefit from and that have a positive impact as well. One aspect I like to introduce when talking about green ecology park is that industrial park, is that we want to measure the social and environmental impact, and a very good approach is a capitals approach. This is looking into what are the ecosystem services a park is benefiting. As you know, to produce any goods, we tap on the natural resource. But it looks into this dependency, but it also looks into the capital that enable those ecosystem service or those social service. And it puts value into the human capital, both the skills of the community, but also the knowledge, the consumer trust, and different aspects around that. And in terms of environmental capital, it takes into account biodiversity and much larger aspects, including disaster risk reduction and so on. We cannot enter in detail into that. I'm going to jump into the policy guideline, and maybe if there is time, I come back to what are the elements of a good eco-industrial park business case, because I heard that you look into foreign investment, so those are elements that are very important to have in the business case. What we've been working with CGI in Uganda, also in Indonesia, and also with Unido is to develop good policies for eco-industrial park. The process has been engaged already over last year with the Ugandan government, and it takes several steps. The first step that is already there very positively is to have a high-level vision whereby the country engage into green industrialization, and where they see the industrial park as a very important tool to leverage that. Then you have the stock taking of what is existing. There is no eco-industrial park policy that can take place in a vacuum. In reality, it is just one element of a number of policies that are put in place by the country. Policies addressing, for example, energy, water, human resource, whatever. Then there's a prioritization, of course, of the intervention, and the design of the policy itself and the implementation into a loop whereby, of course, you analyze how this is made possible and how to modify it if needed. There are many references you can find in UNIDO publication, like part of the UNIDO implementation handbook, and as well with VGGI. So if I have to go quickly, time is going fast. So in the case of Uganda, I drafted the key elements that need to appear in the policy guideline. And those goes from the high-level vision, as I mentioned, to the regulation and planning. You see land acquisition aspects, you see cooperation and management of those industrial park, skill strategy, the financing, of course, the performance evaluation, and so on. So we've been working on all of those modules, but of course, the level of development of each modules requires separate work, which we intend to have with working group, and we present it in the future. So here you see that to start with the policy guideline development, we look into the first 4 or 5 elements here, including defining what would be a green industrial park in Uganda, and what would be the site selection criteria, for example, and then going into the other elements I mentioned. Here is just a project that goes over several years. So what about working groups? The policy guideline itself, guidelines that are to be done by UNIDO and other countries, but they need to be contextualized in Uganda with the experience of the public sector and the private sector coming together. So we already had a working group on the existing policies that can sustain the green industrial park policy, but there are many other working groups that we would like to develop. One address public sector prioritization, the site selection, the eligibility criteria. Of course, all of these have been already drafted, but this will fine-tune. The master planning and engage with the current project and organization in the country. Then, as I mentioned, the financing, there are already several incentive schemes in Uganda, but they are not all promoting green investment. So they need to be reshuffled for green industrial park. The performance indicators as well, those are, you have high level indicators, but there needs also to be localized indicators, so it's a work that requires quite some energy. And there is, at the end of the process, there is also marketing and communication, which is how you're going to really market the park and give it the added value that it deserves. There can be several measures. I will not enter into detail for ecotourism, special economic zone. And as I mentioned earlier, this can be developed together with a brownfield revitalization program, so that we don't just develop new green parks, we also take care of what is existing. In many cases, where I know special economic zone are done in a context where you have already industries set up a bit anarchically. And we've been able to do different symbiosis and program together with the special economic zone and the industry. Maybe one asset that I didn't mention earlier, industrial park, is a good example for the wider industrial sector. So when you channel investment into those parks, you can bring up new skills, incubator, training, and those training need not to be limited. Industries in the park, on the contrary, you can actually have a better financial base when you give access to industry in the vicinity. I think my time is gone. Yes, so I will stop there. There are many other elements such as management, financing, LOCP, and so on that are there, site selection, but that will be in case you have questions later or another presentation. Thank you, everyone. Maybe the name of the beginning, just in case you need the contact. you have the contact of Manan Nakil, the Powami, the Jinamon Wangayo, and myself. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nadia, Regina, and team who prepared this presentation. I need to mention that, as Nadia said, the presentation is available. Some of the text was very tiny, I know, and you requested some of you for the presentation. So Nadia, Regina is here. We'll try and work with her to provide the presentation. But we want to thank you and the team for your presentation and working within the time we have provided. We are now lining up Yoki. I think Yoki is present. Yoki, can you hear me? Can somebody unmute Yoki? We need to unmute Yoki. So the team is unmuting Yoki. I need to mention that the industrial database, an information portal that was launched by the Vice President, is available. Please share with as many manufacturers to have their data input. It would be really critical for us to begin the process of registering our manufacturers. And as the Honorable Minister of State said, that database will provide other critical information, including the number of workers you have, and there is a space for you to share some of the challenges in the industry. So, Yoki, if you're available, if you can hear me, I still see you. Yoki, yes, you're unmuted. Yoki?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Over to you, Yoki. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Could someone please share my presentation? That would be great. Thank you.
They are working on it, Yoki. That's all right.
Yeah, thank you.
They are the host, so I can put themselves on.
Also, we wait for the presentation. I would like to take this chance to say good afternoon to everybody, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, and my colleagues at the Uganda Country Office for giving me this amazing opportunity to participate in this event to commemorate the African Industrialization Day together with you all. Today, I will share our experiences in greening the industry in Indonesia, in particular with regards to the greening of special economic zones, or SEZs, in my country, Indonesia. So if someone could go to the second slide of the presentation. Is it on? I'm sorry, I cannot really see. Okay, so just briefly, I would like to go over the structure of this presentation. I will start off by sharing with you the policy context of SEZs in Indonesia and an overview of our SEZ work stream. I will then share with you what we have done in terms of strengthening the capacity of our government counterparts through several activities. I will then continue by sharing with you several green bankable interventions that we propose to the national and subnational governments into SEZs, along with policy barriers that we encountered. Moving on, I will present our work on the Green SEZ guidelines. We pursued this to support the establishment of an enabling policy environment to accelerate the greening of SEZs in Indonesia. Last but not least, I will share with you the lessons learned that we have identified throughout the years, supporting the development of green SEZs in the country. Slide 3, please. Okay. Yes, the Indonesian SEZ program was initiated as a national priority program with the objective of accelerating national, regional development through the establishment of new growth hubs that entails increased social welfare, particularly in less developed regions in Indonesia. The Indonesian SEZ program is administered by the Coordinated Ministry of Economic Affairs, or CMEA, through the National Council of Special Economic Zones. Now, through this program, the Indonesian government is looking to establish 25 SEZs by 2025. And as of today, there are 19 SEZs that have been inaugurated, 12 currently already in operation, and 7 in development. The majority of these SEZs are located outside the island of Java, which is the most developed region in the country. This is well aligned with the mandate of the program of delivering increased social welfare to less developed regions in the country. Now, through this program, it is expected that total investment will reach $7.2 billion US dollars. And besides the importance in accelerating industrial development in different regions in Indonesia, this will also be vital in helping the Indonesian government in recovering from the adverse impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the main feature of the SEZ program in Indonesia is that SEZ development in the regions are driven by state-owned enterprises in partnership with the private sector as the developers. Another point worth noting is that the SEZ development is currently undergoing a transformation in that up until now, the SEZs are classified into two categories. So on my side, you see the green ones, the green icons, industry and tourism-based ones. Going forward, 4 more categories will be added, namely health, education, digital economy, and maintenance, repair, and overhaul based SDGs. Next slide, please. Thank you. So while trying to deliver economic benefits to its people, Indonesia is also committed to contributing to global efforts in addressing climate change. Through its National Individual Contribution, or NDC, Indonesia has formulated strategies in lowering its emissions by 29 to 41% compared to business as usual scenario by 2030. Now, to ensure the success of such strategies, it is estimated that Indonesia requires financing of approximately $267.81 billion US dollars until 2030. Now, such financing is necessary to support Indonesia in achieving its NDC targets, especially ones in the energy sector. As you can see in the pie chart, the energy sector is likely to need finance of approximately 93% of total financing necessary by 2030. Now, SDGs has a significant role in contributing to the achievement of the country's NDC targets, and this can be done by transitioning to a more sustainable economic model. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now I will briefly go through our SEZ workstream in Indonesia. So our SEZ work in Indonesia began in 2013 when GGI established its country office and started the GGP Phase 1. We initiated our collaboration with the coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs by proposing the Extended Cost Benefit Analysis, or the ECBA, as a tool to provide decision makers with important information regarding the degree of economic, environmental, and social sustainability of interventions in a certain location. Now, on the next phase, Phase 2, we received an additional mandate from the ministry to support the development of SDGs. During this phase, we supported the ministry and also the National Council of Special Economic Zones with project development, policy analysis, and an enabling framework formulation called the Green SDG Guidelines. And now we are currently developing the next phase of the work stream to seek opportunities in piloting the Green SDG Guidelines in selected SDGs. Also, as we understand that SDGs are drivers of regional development, we seek to expand our scope to settlements, in particular to cities, and see how we can apply the guidelines in the context of regional urban development. Next slide, please. Now, I'd like to dive into our early work in Indonesia, the ECBA. We introduced the ECBA as a policy and project assessment tool for decision makers in the ministry. And we also conducted several workshops for government officials and staffs. And over time, the scope of our audience grew to university staffs and researchers. Now, in collaboration with the ministry, we also developed the ECBA handbook as a reference for technical staffs of the ministry, other ministries, and other interested parties. Also, in close collaboration with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, we have managed to mainstream the ECBA as one of the tools for subnational governments to develop their strategic environmental assessment, or SEAs, which is necessary for their regional development plans. GEI also contributed to capacity building of the ministry and also other stakeholders involved in SDGs at the regional level. We, in 2017, successfully organized the Green SDGs Conference, International Green SDGs Conference, that served as a knowledge sharing experience and economic zones development. And through this event, we managed to invite practitioners from the Philippines, South Korea, South Africa, and also other countries, which have experience with Indonesian SDG operators and developers. If you could perhaps go to slide 7, just very quickly. Thank you. This is just briefly. These are the projects that we have done with the ministry. So we conducted several studies in 2 locations in North Sumatra and North Sulawesi, and these are the green interventions that we proposed using ECBA study. Now, if you could go to slide 9. Thank you. So this is basically one of our most important works, the Green SDG certificate. Now, we designed this as a voluntary scheme and marketing tool for SDG developers. It is a 3-tier certification system that takes into account domestic environmental standards and also international best practice. So as you can see next to the blue box, the premium, that requires SDG developers to also implement best international practice, such as the EIP concept from Google. Perhaps you could go to slide 12. I have to summarize this presentation. Thank you very much. So this is a slide of the lessons that we have learned throughout our work in Indonesia. First of all, yes, early buy-in from stakeholders is very important. In this case, we use the ECBA trainings as entry points for us to enter into the SEC issue in Indonesia. And also, we developed the guidelines as a voluntary scheme. So developers are actually free to adopt the guidelines, but once they do adopt it, the national government will have the rights to monitor as mandated by relevant domestic regulations. The third lesson that we learned is that national government supported the concept, but unfortunately there was lacking coordination with regional SDC operators. Therefore, we had struggled in convincing the regional stakeholders to adopt the Green SEC guidelines. And also we have a problem in terms of convincing the national government to adopt the guidelines, because the ministry, the CMEA, was quite busy with drafting the new job creation law. Therefore, it hampered the adoption of the Green SEC guidelines. And last but not least, for us, the UNIDO's EIP approach was very important in that EIP concept and SDG concept are different. SDGs are more geared towards attacking investment with limited consideration for sustainability principles. But on the other hand, EIPs focus to enable symbiotic processes to reduce waste and emissions that emphasize on green production process. So, learning from the EIP concept, we try to incorporate it to the SDG concept to enable a greener development. I think I will stop here for now. If anyone has any question, I will take it during the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yoki. We thank you and the team for the presentation. We don't have a lot of time now, so I'll quickly ask Stephen. Stephen Bogo is coming to take us through the overview of the green manufacturing strategy, the presentation by Dr. Joshua Mutambi. Stephen, you're very welcome. I'll be managing your time myself because it's easy when you're here physically. Because we're limited with the time and I don't want to reduce Godbar's time on the panel. Immediately after Stephen, I'll ask Godbar to come and take over because he has a panel discussion He will be moderating, and we may have, if we have enough time, we'll have a Q&A session at the end before we close this afternoon. You're welcome, Stephen.
Thank you for having me. Since I'm just given 15 minutes, I'll try to bring it down within 15 minutes. I usually take this chance before I begin to introduce our directorate, or rather inform my name is Stephen Kirian Mbogo, and I'm acting in the capacity of the Assistant Commissioner in the Department of Processing and Marketing under Dr. Jambi, and in the section of Technical Research and Development and Innovation, sorry. So the presentation I'll be making is on board on the green manufacturing strategy. Next slide, please. I'll be running through introduction, background, benefits and challenges, the policy, legal and institutional framework, vision, mission, objectives, and strategic interventions. As I said, I'll be running through the slides and be able to view them there. The UN environment, thank you. The UN environment with financial support from European Union worked with the Nations Development Program and the United Nations Office for Project Services to implement Switch Africa Green project in 6 countries in Africa. Under this framework of the SAG project, which is the Switch Africa Green, UN Environment worked with government of Uganda through our ministry, trade industry and cooperatives to develop a green manufacturing strategy for Uganda. Implementation of the strategy was costed. You can see between short term, long term, medium term. The long term is about 210.3 billion. Next slide, please. So going back to the background of the strategy, you can see it dates back at the Rio conference, which our peers mentioned earlier. So greening was actually the background, right? From there. That was after plus 20, I think it was after the Earth Summit of 1996 or so. So it took place in 2000, I think, and 12. So the future we want under that Rio conference was the aspect of transforming our world. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development recognized the need to transit to green economy, including green manufacturing and sustainable industrialization. The Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, recognizes sustainable and inclusive economic growth with one of the key priorities as manufacturing-based industrialization. The Africa Roadmap on sustainable consumption and production for the 10-year framework program implementation identifies greening for businesses as one of the key cross-cutting issues to achieve the sustainable consumption production. Next slide, please. Okay, just to go a little on the background, the East African Industrialization Strategy recommends East Africa community partner states to promote sustainable industrialization through adoption of resource-efficient and cleaner production in enterprises. At the national level, the Vision 2040 aspires, I think you guys are going to first. Can you go back to the slide? Thanks. So at the national level, as I said, aspires for that, and the Vision 2040 recognizes sustainable. It's running up and down. Okay. So that's slide 6 now. The manufacturing sector in Uganda is dominated by small, medium-sized enterprises, which account for over 90% of the enterprises and generate over 80% of the manufacturing output. The average contribution of the manufacturing to GDP has been 7.5% in the last decade. Uganda Vision 2040 targets 50% of the total exports as manufacturing goods. The sector, however, is largely engaged in the production of low value added products. Next slide, please. The sector comprises mainly of manufacturing food products, as listed. Most of these manufacturing enterprises are located in major towns such as Kampala. These are actually within the Lake Victoria Basin and near the banks of River Nile. They are also located in planned industrial and business parks and also Uganda free zones. Can you go to the next slide, please? So like in many developing countries, manufacturing enterprises in Uganda are low resource efficient and largely categorized as high polluters due to a number of reasons. Those are listed: use of inefficient technologies in their operations, poor operation practices, low awareness of the benefits of the green manufacturing practices. The list goes on. And this actually impedes the capacity of manufacturing enterprises in Uganda to compete in both the regional and international markets. Now, overexploitation, next slide please. Going into the environmental and health impacts of the manufacturing processes in Uganda, overexploitation of resources due to low productivity caused by inefficient manufacturing processes. There is also pollution of water surface and destruction of aquatic life from the untreated or the partially treated wastewater discharged directly or indirectly into the water bodies. There is also increased air pollution due to release of oxides of sulfur and greenhouse gases from the manufacturing processes. We also have the health effects due to pollutants such as heavy metals discharged from the manufacturing enterprises. Now, in the next slide, we are actually going to what is actually a green manufacturing strategy. Now, green manufacturing is a process of improving efficiency. To break it down, as it says below, the strategy defines GMX, that's the green manufacturing strategy, as the application of environmental and socially sensitive practices to reduce the negative impact of production processes and product use while striving for economic benefits. That's the actual definition of the green manufacturing strategy. Concerning the benefits, we have significant, of course, economic, environmental, and social benefits. The implementation of the Switch Africa Green for MSMEs, SMEs were in its case sensitized to adopt the 3 R's, which were namely recovery, recycle, and reuse. In this, there was improved resource efficiency, and there was also, as the GGI lady said earlier, there was a decoupling of economic development from the environmental degradation that was leading to both employment creation, competitive advantage, and sustainable growth. Environmental benefits include promotion of sustainable consumption and production patterns, which result into minimum resource depletion and negligible environmental negative impacts because of low demand, which allows for extended life and possible renewal of some natural resources. From the social perspective, greening of the manufacturing enterprises promotes energy security, health and safety, innovation, creates jobs and increases income generation due to reduction in costs and increased productivity. Now, the challenges faced by green manufacturing strategy in Uganda, greening the manufacturing sector is largely hindered by a number of challenges, and that includes those number. Just to mention a few, it was limited technical support to guide enterprises. There was low awareness of the benefits of the resource efficiency. There was limited access to green finance. There was competitive priorities and pressure for short-term products. The next slide. Now there are several existing international obligations, national legal instruments and policies that support adoption of green manufacturing practices, and they include a number of them. A number of which was laid out was of course, the Paris Agreement, which Uganda signed and ratified in 2015-2016. There was the Kyoto Protocol, the National Environment Act of 2019, And those are much of the list that attends to the bringing. In addition, there is a number of policies, strategies, and the national development plans that recognize and support adoption of green manufacturing practices as a very suitable approach to attaining sustainable industrialization. Just give the next slide, please. Our vision is to be a resource-efficient, competitive, and sustainable manufacturing sector that contributes to the prosperity of all. The mission, of course, is to create a resilient manufacturing sector for wealth creation and improved livelihood. The overall objective, the next slide, the overall objective of the strategy is to support development of green businesses, that's sustainable businesses, and use of sustainable consumption and production practices in enterprises in the manufacturing sector in order to improve resource productivity, environmental performance, and contribute to sustainable industrialization while creating jobs and improving livelihoods. Next slide, please. The next slide was introduced to me by one of my colleagues, not here right now, but I think he was talking about the relationship between the triple helix function, which is government, industry, and academia, together with the green manufacturing strategy, how it was green in addition to the good manufacturing practices. Here we see government associations feeding into the manufacturing sector, and on the side, raw materials. It's all about the production process. In the case of time, I'll just jump the slide, and I'll go to the main thing about the green manufacturing strategy, which is the key objectives. The specific objectives, next slide please. Number one, as the slide comes up, awareness raising, information dissemination, and capacity building for green the manufacturing strategy. Second objective is to enhance technology development and innovations for green manufacturing through research and development. That was actually stressed by our representative. The third is to enhance access to green financing, to support green investments in manufacturing enterprises. And the fourth objective is to enhance compliance of manufacturing enterprises with existing policy and regulatory framework. In these objectives, next slide, we go to the interventions. Now, each objective aligns to a number of, each of these interventions aligns to the objective. So I'll just go through a few of the interventions to the specific objectives. The first intervention to the objective was to facilitate wider engagement and networking among universities, support promotion and implementation of resource efficient and pollution prevention programs. Also, the third was to support capacity building for technical institutions and service providers. And the fourth was to develop a mechanism for dissemination information on greening technologies. Go to the next slide, please. On the next slide is the strategic interventions for the second objective, is to support collaborative research and strengthen linkages among R&D, which is research and development, support R&D for bringing existing manufacturing methods, and to develop R&D supporting infrastructure for bringing manufacturing, such as incubator centers, research, grants, and STI parks, the science and technology parks. We can go to the third strategic interventions, which is to enhance provisions of fiscal incentives. That's very vital. We are on the next slide, please. And also to build capacity to support financial institutions to provide green finance. So on the fourth objective, the interventions were to enhance cooperative and harmonized goals, support development and implementation of compliance assistance programs, and to enhance the capacity of regulatory agencies to enforce laws and regulations relevant, of course, to the operations of enterprises in the manufacturing sector. I would like to, on the last slide, I think I'm going too fast for the ICT. I'd like to acknowledge at this time, together on behalf of the ministry highly appreciates and recognizes the financial and technical support and contributions from our development partners, the European Union, who funded the SAG, that's the Switch Africa Green, and development of the GMS, that's the Green Manufacturing Strategy, through United Nations Environmental Program, United Nations Development Program, and the support from the United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF, and USAID, United States Agency for International Development, Feed the Future Uganda, Institutes for Systems Strengthening Activities, that's the ISSA, that will also support the implementation of the strategy. Further, the ministry acknowledges the contribution of all NGOs, NPA, that's the National Planning Authority, NEMA, UCPC, that's the Uganda Clean Production Center, and other policymakers, the private sector, academia, of course, and the civil society organizations that participated in the formulation, validation, and the launch of the strategy. Last but not least, and important of all, unfortunately, she's not around now, we highly appreciate the strategic guidance and the technical contribution from the Honorable Minister Chamani, who endorsed it after the validation process. Thank you all, and thank you for listening.
Over to you.
Thank you, Ken.
Yes.
Good man. I thought you would take it over. I didn't want to take any of your 2 minutes or 3 because you're between us and our lunch. So we need to manage the time very carefully. We will not smile at you at 1 p.m.
I know very well that for the sake of Uganda's manufacturing sector, we can even forego the lunch. Thank you very much, Maurice. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Abot Batumshare. I will be moderating this session this afternoon. This is a session on moving towards inclusive and sustainable industrialization. So let me very quickly invite my panelists and start with Dr. Abraham Muhambuzi, Manager Science and Technology, National Planning Authority. Abraham, if you can take your seat. Dr. Patrick Birungi, Executive Director, Uganda Development Corporation. Mr. David Ebiru, Executive Director, Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Mr. Stuart Mwesigwa, Board Member, Uganda Manufacturers Association. And then I'll end with Mr. Dennis Adebiona, Commissioner for Industry in the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative, and Dennis will be here watching over us, make sure that everything that we take is proper. Yeah. So what we are going to do is to go through this discussion, really pose some few questions to the panelists that we can reflect on, and I am hoping in this discussion we can, we can just we can speak openly as Ugandans. We don't have to worry about our titles. Since I can see there are very few politicians in the room, so we can really, I think we can talk freely about the conversation we need to have this morning. And let me start with you, Dennis. And the question to you is, in your assessment, where are we as a country with regard to manufacturing? If you were asked to describe our current position as a country in just 1 minute and say this is Uganda's manufacturing sector position, what would you tell us? What we need someone to help us move the mic here.
Thank you, Godba. Good afternoon, everyone who is here. Yes, Uganda's industrial sector, but you are saying I should focus more on manufacturing. Yes, so the positive projects that I would say, But in a nutshell, it is comprised of micro, small, and medium enterprises who are using, I would say, technology which is not advanced. I will be cautious with my words because I'm a shepherd of the industry.
This is your opportunity to tell us openly because nobody will reprimand you for it.
So we have got some challenges as regards to acquisition of appropriate technologies to be able to produce quality and competitive products. They need skills to be able to catch up with the recent developments, because if you are also to meet the standards, it's not only technologies, you also need the requisite skills to be able to run the production processes. There are issues to do with the management of the processes and the practices. So I would say that they are largely small, about 90%, but without also losing it, we've got also some good large industries. I'm beginning to see the level of manufacturing value added going up. As per the recent Uganda statistics, we are now at 15.1%. Our ambition in the industrial policy will be to double that and be able to expand and diversify.
Okay.
I'm beginning to see, I want to paint to not also leave out the good practices and the innovations that have come in the industry. During this period of COVID, we're able to.
Sorry, Dennis, actually, I want us to be able to zero down on where are we going to come as well. Where are we going? I want to turn to Patrick. Can you give us your assessment of where we are from your standpoint, and probably talk about the financing as well?
Thank you very much, moderator. The sector is fast picking up. One thing we need to do is maybe to invite Ugandans to visit a few of the establishments across the country and get a feel of what is happening. Sometimes we don't know our own country and we don't know the changes that are happening. However, having noted that there is still a struggle on getting appropriate technology, as Dennis had already highlighted, getting appropriate technology. There is still a struggle of having a strong private sector to intervene in all areas. And that's why you see government coming in and say, can we go in and kickstart certain interventions here and there, so that the private sector can get into that. Now, you said we talk about financing. We've also seen growth in development finance coming on board, with the government capitalizing UDB and UDC, with the East African Development Bank also increasing their stake in the industrial sector development. There is growing support, development finance for the industrial sector.
Are you able to put some figures, the big figures?
Yes, we've seen UDB grow from about 100 billion shillings capital in the last few years to over 1 trillion in about 3 years. So this is a big improvement in availability of finance. We are seeing UDC also growing from way below 100 billion, now moving towards 400 billion, and still growing. So this is a sign of increasing availability of finances.
Okay, that's good. Can I invite Stuart from the manufacturer side to be able to share with us? Oh, it's on? Yes, just from the manufacturer side, give us. I think what we capture trying to talk like a politician diplomat. Let's be open, because I'm hoping that from this conversation, someone can even put together like 2 pages and say, this is where we are, this is where we are going. I'm hoping that's what we get out of this conversation. So, Stuart.
Thank you very much, moderator. All protocol observed. I thank you for having kept your cool to be here to listen to this wonderful conversation, and mainly also to thank the partners who are the engineers of at least having created this kind of anxiety in order to dialogue on a very pertinent issue. Stuart, Jason, Westwa are my names here on behalf of Uganda Manufacturers Association, but as well, I wouldn't be shy to say, I work with the Roofings Group, one of your very renowned steel and plastics quality manufacturing entity, but most of all, observing and very passionate about what we are talking about. So I think I'm not misplaced, neither is your time wasted. Thank you. On the side of the private sector, we believe that we are the engine of growth, we are the engine of observance of a lot of ethical practices that we must embrace and emulate, because it is out of manufacturing that a lot of pollution through hazardous waste, through unethical practices that we pollute the environment, we actually a risk if we don't practice what we are preaching right now. On the ESC level, of course, we also have East African Business Council. Private sector, we are the voice of the business community. So what we are discussing today, I've seen through the other presentations, is not only focused on Uganda, but East Africa, and I think ultimately the continent and the world at large. From our side, yes, I think I have ambassadors here and witnesses like Bruno. I remember one day when you were planting a tree in the roofings, Namambe. This is like 5 years ago. We were already preaching what we are talking today. But what I'm saying, when are we going to get out of this handbook that we have circulated today? When are we going to get out of this boardroom? When are we going to be practical? We need to get going. We need to embrace
Sorry, Stuart. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to direct you to my question.
Yes.
My question is, you are a manufacturer.
Yeah.
You're on the board of Uganda Manufacturers Association. Where do you see the state of manufacturing sector in this country today? We listened to all these other presentations. Right now, because I want us to use a very limited time to be able to talk about the things that are very, very practical, as you're saying. So what is your assessment of the state of the manufacturing sector in Uganda today?
I thought the background would also be necessary, but my assessment as the Uganda Manufacturers Association is that the situation is not healthy at all. There is a lot that we need to do. We are having so many small and medium, with well intentions, practicing persons who actually want to do something for their livelihood, for the good of the country, but how are we doing it? And that's why I come to say it is us, the Manufacturers Association, the senior cadres in the manufacturing entity, to be as examples to our young ones, so that we can grow them together with ourselves to emulate what we are talking about. Our situation at the moment as a country is still very wanting, and this should be taken positively, since we said it's not a political platform. It is very, very wanting. We need to get out of the boardroom, I still emphasize.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Stuart. To Abraham, from the NBS side, and you guys at NBS are doing an incredible job thinking and planning. But I want you to look at to address this issue from the different perspective. What do you think that we should have done way back that we didn't do? Because the industry discussion, the industry policy discourse on this continent dates back to 1980, the Abuja Plan of Action, 1980. And when you look at the literature, the OAU, African Union, the declarations, the programs that have been adopted at different levels, and then we have the situation that Stuart is saying it's not healthy. What is it that we should have done that we didn't do that explains where we are?
Thank you, moderator. And I think, like you said, we should all describe from where we are. So for example, I'm describing that building, I can see it well, but someone who is down there below this building will not be able to describe that. So we are all describing from different perspectives. But I think what we shouldn't have done, which we did in the 90s, following the Washington Consensus, was the mass privatization of all government entities. With all their difficulties in operation, it was very critical that as a government, we continued in doing business or picking out specific areas where we said this is a must-have. And as NPA, those are some of the things we are pushing for. Saying there are some areas where government has to come in, where the private sector will not go. And when you look at our manufacturing sector today, the major challenge we have is the extent of value addition. We are still at intermediate stage. We have failed to break through to the processing of raw materials from zero. Irrespective of the agriculture we talk about, irrespective of the minerals, we still export them raw, and then we bring in intermediate goods to process. But I think that was a big mistake because there are areas the private sector will not go into because they are capital intensive, number one, but number two, they take a long time to bring back the return on investment. So going to the phase at the beginning would have worked well if government continued, even if it was limping. Now it is becoming very expensive for government to go back, and it is pulling its feet, slowly giving a little money here, sprinkling. So bringing back UDC, which was very critical then, but the capitalization is not to the required level. So I think that is what we did, which we shouldn't have done. And what we need to do now as the country, the manufacturing sector, if we are to see industrialization drive development, we need to pierce through that ceiling of going to the production of capital goods from the raw materials we have.
Okay, thank you very much. I was actually a bit concerned, Patrick, with your submission. I think you said that the financing for UDC has now reached like 400 billion. It's kind of like, was that accurate or it was a mistake? I think it said from 1 billion, from 100 billion to 100 billion.
No, it would be very unfortunate if the new speech is from me on UDC. So, very accurate.
Very accurate.
Yes, but it's a growth process which will continue to build up.
Okay. Yeah, so that's basically that's what I actually want to zero in, and that if we are going to grow at that rate of 1 billion to 400 billion in 3 years, And we need to wait for a very long time. That I think we need to really emphasize it. Because the things we're talking about, they are not things you can do as laissez-faire. You have to be able to do them and do them right. So that worries me for me. But let me get on to David. We were in Hoima on Tuesday, and people complained, the people from the local governments complained about substandard products. The substandard products that are coming in, the ones that are going onto the market. I think one of the major issues was about these drinks that have very funny names, and then the plastic bottles that are being splashed around. And the question was, what is it that institutions like UBOS, like UNBS need to be able to do to deal with this problem so that we have an industrialization agenda that is properly regulated?
Thank you very much, Bwana Godba and our audience. Again, in line with the theme, industrialization of inclusiveness and sustainability. And Godba, probably the most inclusive service is standardization, because it does not look at the size, whether it is my brother here, the giant, or it is the people you are complaining, people are complaining about them being in the industry. So therefore, standards, quality standards provide an even ground, and it's all inclusive. Large, medium, micro, small, gender, women, and the youth. So it's therefore very important that we appreciate that in the current industrialization agenda of the country, much as my brother is painting a blue picture, that is not good. I can differ with you that possibly the most industrial country and entrepreneurial country is our country, because everybody is trying to do value addition. And therefore, because standards are inclusive, we are saying that whether you are importing or you are manufacturing locally, we have a common denominator. You must comply with the minimum quality requirements. So as far as inclusiveness is concerned, we have done that very well. As far as implementing standards is concerned, our challenge is about sustainability. One is that how do the big players, the giants in the industry, the sector, admit and open room for everybody to participate? Because we tend to look at protectionism, and therefore we believe that since we are the first in the sector or in that industry, we should not allow anybody else to come. So we are saying no, since standards is inclusive, let everybody come so long as you play the same rules, put the same quality products on the market, and let people decide whom to buy from, regardless of their size. So I think that's our message. And then particularly for Hoima should be very happy that we have started from Hoima to make sure that they consume quality products. We are doing that for the whole country, and therefore we should not condemn. I must tell you, God, that those drinks they are talking about is a real truly boo. You cannot get them anywhere in East Africa because you know the raw materials. We get these raw materials from our agricultural products, and they do some value addition. What we need to do is to nurture them, to be able to put products that with the minimum quality requirement. But we should not condemn them. That's my message given the other day in Parliament, where they're saying these Mukama Nayambas, the boss, the work, those names. I said, no, so long as you have seen the quality mark, please go ahead and drink them. They are good. However, if we have not seen them and certify them, then I cannot guarantee, and that's our focus. We need to make sure we look out for these people who are trying to put things on the market and encourage them to make sure that they are checked by UNBS and they are safe and of quality so that they can freely compete. We must open up the market.
I just need to push a little bit on that point, David. And maybe even I'll ask Dennis to come in, because you've narrowed down the inclusiveness discussion to standards. What I have seen from a private perspective, we have government really working very hard to attract foreign direct investments. And see that the policy posture is that we attract foreign investors, they come establish here, they create jobs. I am interested in seeing what are the programs of government that make sure that they are Ugandan manufacturers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that the inclusiveness is, for me, I see it more from that perspective. Are there programs that make sure that me as a Ugandan, I can move into the manufacturing sector and access the financing? Because I believe that investors from China, from India, from everywhere, they have their government supporting them to come and establish it. Do we have similar programs that support local manufacturers to establish?
Yes.
I want to talk about that, and also Dennis would add on that.
But that's very important. As I told you that standards as an inclusive service, make sure that whether you are importing or you are exporting, you meet the minimum standards. So one of the government programs we have at the Uganda National Bureau of Standards is what we call pre-export verification of conformity to Uganda standards for any product that comes into this country. We mean that if you want to bring anything into this country, it must meet the same standard of the product locally manufactured. So we are making it very difficult for any foreign person to export its thing to Uganda if that thing is being manufactured. Therefore, the Ugandan product should be more competitive than an imported product, because then we are saying that you have an extra cost to incur to bring the same product being manufactured in Uganda other than buying it from within. So that's the concept of why Uganda build Uganda, and we are saying that how can we make sure that we embed a quality infrastructure in the production process, in the industrialization, so that we actually go where Brother Bruno told us, import replacement. The economists, you say import substitution. And therefore, once we import substitute, automatically it results into the exports. That Ugandan products can now be able to also compete internationally to be able to what? To get foreign income, other than us relying on imports. So that's one of the programs. Get all products coming into Uganda to meet Uganda standards, so that we make it very difficult and expensive for them to bring the same products into the country.
Okay.
The second one, Mr. Godba, is why we are saying that now once a bureau has certified a Ugandan product, UNBS has harmonized and adopted regional and international standards and even continental standards. We want to make sure that a Ugandan product can freely move to any of these markets because it has been quality assured under the common standards within the region, within the continent, and international. So that is the protection and assurance and the incentive we are giving you as Ugandan companies, leave alone reduction in the cost of standardization, so that we can promote implementation of standards across all levels. We have reduced cost of certifications, annual permits for both micro and light to be able to spur truly Ugandan, and we encourage our Ugandans to take advantage of those incentives.
Okay, thank you. Dennis, do you want to add anything in terms of the specific programs targeting Ugandan manufacturers, or even people who want to come into the market? I thought Morris had given me someone to move around the mic.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for us as a country, we are open, and I wouldn't want to paint a picture that we have got special considerations for foreign investors against the domestic investors. So they are a host of incentives government provides. They will support the investors. And when you look at the incentive scheme, the threshold for domestic investors, knowing the challenges we have, is lower than for the FDI. And also, I want to talk about the benefits from what I'm looking from the foreign investors. Number one, they are coming from developed countries where manufacturing has already taken place. They have the technical know-how, they have the capital, and hence we also have got a lot of information and access to the markets which we want to go to. So there are those benefits. And I can tell you that as a minister, the government at large, we are doing a lot to ensure that we bring our Ugandans into the manufacturing. We have been deeply involved in agriculture, the farming, but this is doing value addition. We are more in importation. Mr. Edwin has already said that people have picked their issues and they are doing what that's what we can do at the moment. But from the gradual simplicity. Your first idea special program is part of the investor. Definitely through Uganda government corporation, we are having a program where we are supported locally. They also run a portfolio programs and installation. We're also making efforts to ensure that they move where they have raised before, they go to the industrial parks. I think we have, I would say that we have improved it.
Okay, thank you very much. Abraham, who is doing R&D to support domestic manufacturing in this country?
But who is doing R&D? Those people are so is not essential authority or agency. It's not go in charge. But you can go in charge to say that so and so is doing R&D. But the Uganda Industries Research Institute is the agency that was set up to specifically go into that, so that the output from there can be able to support the industrial sector. But given that there is no streamlined structure that is guiding that research, because what we have been working at NTA and the Ministry of Science and Technology is saying that we should look at the national priorities and the national needs, and then have an agenda for development, which guides all research. So that if building is doing research, it knows that these are the things I'm targeting. And even any additional research that is done elsewhere in universities, in the agencies, is geared towards this one thing to solve that national problem. And so the research which is done by Julie and other areas which are scattered ends up not being impactful, because it is not concentrated towards targeting the common problem. That issue is being handled between NPA and the Science Ministry to see that we have that framework, periodic framework that guides the research agenda in the country, industrial and all other sectors.
Okay. So from the NPS side, did you see that gap being addressed? Do you actually think that with that scattered research environment, we can actually have robust industrialization?
Yes, we see that gap is being addressed because we have already seen it, and it is a target. We're coming up with a national research agenda framework and the national research agenda. In the national development plan today, there should be research priority. So in the 4 and 5, so over a period of time, there should be research priority. So that is being addressed on top of the research that is ongoing. We can't stop the research. It is addressed in some areas, but it is not addressed in others because it is not focused.
Okay. All right. I just want to, I have requested for strictly 15 minutes to be able to receive some questions from the audience and from our online audience. So that means that I will delay your lunch by just 15 minutes, and I seek your indulgence in this. So I want to see if there are any questions that come from the audience into the panel, or if there is anybody, whoever is managing our online audience, if there are any questions that need to, anybody wants to ask a question, this is the time. And we'll be very, very strict with the time so that we can be able to conclude at exactly a 1:15. Anybody wants to ask a question from the audience here, or wants to make a comment? Yes, please the microphone. Please introduce yourself and you ask your question. You're free to direct the question to a particular panelist, or even if it's general, that's still fine.
Thank you very much, moderator. I'm called Okincho Lawrence Michael. I am the Director of Promotion and Students of Promotion Board. I am excited to be here, and based on the discussion that has been going, I think we are doing the right thing. I just need to make a comment that given what is happening today, I think there has been that fear that the big manufacturers will swallow up the small manufacturers or the micro and small enterprises. The truth of the matter now is that it is no longer the issue of the big swallowing the small, but the fast regarding the slow. So if the big enterprise is slow, the smaller enterprises will swallow it up. If the small enterprise is slow and the big enterprise is fast, it will swallow it up. So we need to realign our forces to ensure that all of us move fast, whether you're small or big, and the processes to facilitate that need to be put in place. But as I see, if I look at the global green institute, they're talking the same thing. If I look at what NGA is saying, we're looking at the same thing. If I look at what the ministry is saying, we're moving in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, sir, over there, at the back there.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Planner Ronald McGill. I'm the project lead for the Uganda greening of our urbanization and industrialization project funded by the European Union. I have one point, and I've raised this many times, and I raised it again this morning during my presentation. In order to attract FDIs, in order to attract foreign direct investment, we need to be investment friendly and aware. One way to be aware is to ensure that we have the external economies to support any enterprise who chooses to move in here. That means all of the Trump infrastructure needs to be in place. And as a global conclusion, and even in my presentation's opening PowerPoint, we have under half of all infrastructure requirements in place in our urban locations. And until we overcome that hurdle and get the massive investment in place to get the roads, to have the power and the water and all of that in place, we will continue to operate with both hands tied behind our backs. And that is not allowed to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's the infrastructure gaps that we need to be able to address. Any other comment, or do we have anybody online? Let's get the...
There is a mic online. Can I?
Okay, we have someone online, then I'll come to Michael. Michael online, if you can unmute your mic and talk to us.
Thank you very much. This is Michael Chiraya. I don't know whether you can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear.
This is Michael Chiraya from African Leather Products. And my question is, have we organized the manufacturers into clusters in order to conduct joint capacity development programs, like a joint infrastructure development, like joint treatment plants, and everything similar to that? How is that program taking place in Uganda? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll take you, madam, and then we'll end there and get back to the panel.
Hello again, my name is Dr. Mazoga. I'm the country representative of GDPI. My question is, I really appreciated the guidance earlier given by the permanent secretary on, this is where we see the development partners. I would like to ask the panel the same question, like in all these challenges that we're facing, that you've been discussing, where do you see the role of development partners, and where, can we further support besides financing.
Okay, thank you.
Financing is one of them, but besides that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have two additional questions, if the panelists can pick them. How best can we eliminate empty plastic bottles from the villages, as soft drinks in such bottles are penetrating all villages in the country? Two, so this is Michael's question, he has already asked it, so we have that question as well. So I want to start from Stuart. One is in less than a minute. You see if there's any of the questions that have been raised you want to address. And then secondly, paint for us a picture of how Uganda's manufacturing sector should look like 10 years from now. If we did everything and we're successful, what do you want to see 10 years from now? How does that sector look like? In 1 minute. Because each one of you guys have 1 minute, because we are not going to go past a quarter past 1.
Thank you very much, our moderator. Empty plastics should go beyond empty plastics, because we also have steel and so many other things. It's high time we got together as part of social responsibility, as part of our routine operations. We should get into a system whereby we can collect these things from household entity. If we have gone to those developed countries, they actually have collection centers where they segregate what is paper, what is glass, what is plastic. It should be a common practice. It shouldn't be left to KCCA. And then our manufacturers, both the young and the so-called big guys, we need to find a way of recycling this to make it more getting better products from out of what we call waste or empty plastics and use it better. Where do I want to see our Ugandan environment 10 years from now? Of course, if we embrace, if we take it together without discriminating who is young, who is old, but learning from each other and combining the effort, we should be at minimum the South Africa of Africa or the New York of America. I look forward to seeing us embracing this. If we actually implement, I think the word here is awareness plus implementation.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Thank you very much, Stuart. Can I go to Patrick? Any question you want to answer, and paint for us a picture of where we should be in terms of manufacturing as a country.
Thank you very much. I think let me answer the last question on the home department. I think this area is still open for intervention. Today we had a database being launched, but we did give it adequate attention to understand what it was. In this country, you can know where every petrol station is, but you cannot know where every industry is. So we need to move in that direction. Number two, financing to reduce the cost of capital. So as much as there is increasing availability of capital, the cost is a little high for the manufacturers. Number three, we need to support the R&D as God has mentioned. It's an area in this country that needs to be supported moving forward. Number four, from the GTDI point of view, is support appraisal systems, so that we have an integrated appraisal systems that lead to green investment as opposed to reacting to already operating systems. So that would be the best way forward. I guess I have 1 minute, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks so much. Over to David.
Thank you, Godpa. If I can start with my sister from DGIC, where should development partners come in this? outside money, I would say that there is very limited space outside money. In case you need development partners to come and support. But that said, one of the gaps, especially in industrialization in Uganda, is the participation of the micro small enterprises. And the biggest challenge for them is the cost of implementing quality standards. In terms of infrastructure, the minimum quality infrastructure required to be able to meet those standards, but also in terms of the knowledge gaps. As you are aware, standards are quite technical. Much as we have tried to proceed to actually translate some of the standard into local language, which could be another intervention you may wish to support in line with building capacity of micro small enterprises to be able to implement minimum standards. Because again, the other day when I was engaging, I was saying that globally, as far as trade is concerned, and especially international trade, you can negotiate tariffs, you can negotiate quotas, but there is one thing you cannot negotiate, and that is quality standards. They can give you all the market, they can reduce all the taxes, and subject to meeting.
So David, I don't want to miss your picture of the future.
For the future, yes, I think the future is very good. As I said, we have a beehive of activity of value addition going across the country in all sectors.
No, actually, my question is different. 10 years from now, what kind of manufacturing sector do you want to see?
In fact, I want the agro processing value addition to be key because the key inputs and cheap inputs are from agriculture. So we need to harness that accessibility and the low cost of inputs and raw materials that are readily available to actually capitalize and be able to have a comparative advantage on value-added products arising from agro-processing. And I see in the next 10 years that we should capture the African continental market, we should capture Europe and everywhere because it is truly build Uganda by Uganda.
Thank you very much, David. I was in Kenya last week and I saw build by Kenya, build Kenya. Abraham, over to you. And there's also buy South Africa, buy South Africa. Yes, Abraham, please.
Thank you. On the removal of plastics, my proposal is we should attach 100 shillings to every plastic. You take it back, you get 100 shillings. So when on the buying, you should add 100 shillings. So no one will throw the plastic bottle when it's empty, because they want to get it back and get their 100 shillings. On the development partners, I think outside money, the development partners have funded it a lot. So many documents, so many plans, we need now to fund the fundamentals. For example, Uganda talk about industrial parks. Can you do for us at least one? Good infrastructure, roads, water, everything, the one we did Kampala is a total case. And then other fundamental areas like the fertilizer industry, the iron and steel industry, industries that will be able to support the other industry.
Okay, the future?
Then the future, if we are to get to the future as it is painted here, industrialization is the work. So you have to protect your markets, number one. You have to support your indigenous people. So we don't have to publicize what everywhere people support, even in the US, but here when you set subsidies and what the target what we have to find a way of beating this. We don't have to publicize it in the papers, but hand it and say, so and so to APCD, UPC comes in, and that is when.
Thank you. Thank you, Abraham. I am stopping you there because it is exactly 1:15. So I wanted to make sure that I hand over to Dennis so that he takes responsibility for my failure to manage the time. So Dennis, you come in and make any closing remarks in terms of if there are any questions you need to respond to, what's your vision of the future? But if there is anybody who is going to close the session, the official closing, you can also invite that person to do the closing once you've made your remarks. So otherwise, from my side, I want to thank you very much. I want to thank our panel. You've done a wonderful job. I think you've shared with us very, very great ideas. Now let's give them a round of applause. I want to thank our online audience for sticking with us and sharing with us. And I want to have, at this moment, I want to hand it over to Dennis. If you want to respond to any question, paint that picture of the future, but also invite anybody who is there to officially close the meeting. Or if you are the one, you close and invite us to lunch. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. My permanent secretary has been called for another important event, but colleagues and friends join me to give her a round of applause for her time and for the guidance for today. Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. Our colleagues, I think we have had a good discussion. On my side, what I would wish to say is that as a country, as a government, we need to increase our coordination and cooperation to be able to address this matter of industrialization. And I want to agree with Dr. Abraham. Industrialization is actually a war. And I want to tell you that at a higher level, that war has already been, the commanders, or the, what you would call the CDF, is already there. And I would say, platoon commanders have also been lined up for that cause. Why am I saying so? His Excellency is really supporting this program and been guided as the ministry, and most especially as the industry department, to take upon this war seriously with our key stakeholders and program to still speak to what you are saying. The president is saying that let's get our raw materials. We should be able to do a lot of research and see what we can do with these raw materials. We are looking for the required technologies. That's why we are doing all these partnerships with different partners. A lot of markets have been negotiated, and we're also looking at how to take up those opportunities. Whatever for your interest on the issue of the plastic bottles, you will recall that our packaging, most especially for the drinks, we moved from sachets and it went more to the bottles. And there are issues along with that, but also we really think that the problem is not the bottle, it's not the plastic bottle, or it's not the plastic material, because there are benefits scientifically that you will need to be able to preserve or transport some of the products there. Those products will be carried. The issue of seeing them in the environment, part is our behavior and our weak physical infrastructure. From the side of manufacturing, we are taking on the program of licensing industrials, and therefore working also with National Environment Management Authority. There is a clause for producer responsibility. So therefore, the entities which are packaging their products using these plastic materials should be able to take responsibility to follow up with the product as is being used, and be able to collect that waste, bring it back, and convert it into some other products. I have been empowered by the ministry leadership that I should be able to close this event. As you are very much aware, we started the African Industrialization Week on the 15th, and we have a number of programs spanning up to 23rd of November. So I want to inform you that the discussions are still going on. We are going to have more engagements on the media. It's only the program we had on Tuesday that more or less wrote down the scheme, but we have picked it up again. We're still continuing. I wish to invite this congregation to another event on 23rd, which is being organized by Makotono, and it's having a number of partners. most especially there we are going to have the micro, small and medium enterprises and some youth who are just starting up in new enterprises. So it's important to be involved in that. We also have another event on 22nd, which has been organized by the labor organizations. They also want to engage with us on the type of jobs we are creating in the industries, whether they are actually decent jobs, and we'll be engaging with them on that day. As regards today, I wish to really thank all of you for making it to this event. I want to thank our master of ceremony as much as he has left. I also want to thank our moderator, Mr. Godi Batusha, for the job well done. I want to thank the panelists. Your coming and your contribution shows your level of commitment to this course, and it makes me no doubt that you will not be able to take the struggle going forward. I want to thank our development partners, GGI, UNIDO, UNDP, UNCPF. If I leave out any, not by intention, but all of you, your support is highly appreciated, and we look forward to continue engaging. I would like to thank the team from the ministry for the job that has been done, and I also want to take up the responsibility and to say that whatever could have not worked out very well, the standards we say there is room for improvement. These become lessons, and we will be able to address them going forward. Thank you so much, and God bless you. We will have lunch. I think the secretary needs to come and guide us. I'm told you already received the coupons. Where is it served? I think members need to hear from your voice.
Lunch is served in Summit Restaurant and Sulatin.
How are you, sir? I always listen to most of the time. That's one time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How are you? Yes. You came to plant the tree and you never came back. You see? How are you? You have disappeared. Yes.